Welcome back, everybody, to Flight Path. We have the gang back together. It has been a couple weeks since we had Brad, our head of design, Molly, our head of product, and me, David, one of the co-founders and CEO here at Tern, all together for Flight Path. And it just feels so good to have the gang back together. We're going to jump into what we've all been up to that sort of kept us apart for so long. But before we do that, quick reminder, Brad did a great job. If you missed the past two episodes, reminding people to like and subscribe. So I have to keep up that momentum. Go ahead, click that like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Loved all the banter on the comments from the past couple episodes. But with that, we're going to start like we always do, which is sort of like week in review. And Molly, I'm coming to you first. How has the week been? And maybe like what's new in the past 2 weeks? Because it's been a while since you've been on the pod.
Well, wait, what was this fun banter? I think Brad and I didn't see the banter in the past couple.
Oh, it was just the comments. Like people are like actually like commenting like quite regularly. I usually like need to do a better job at responding to all the comments, but people were like commenting on how much they liked David, Tilly, and Ursula being on the podcast. They were like, where's like, you know, what's going on with everybody else? Then they were like excited about the twins, like all the things, right? So it's just like fun seeing the comments. So we do read them, even if we don't respond as much as we should.
We also learned that David Tilly comments on the podcast, so he juices those numbers.
That's true. That's true. So somebody at Tern will respond. It is probably going to be David Tilly. So just say hi to David in the comments. We would appreciate that, and it'll be great.
Amazing. Okay. Well, last couple weeks, I was on another cruise, so I can talk about it now, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I do think you're going to get your cruise loyalty program here pretty soon, right?
Yeah. So no, it was really fun. I went on a cruise so it was Voya's like big annual conference, and I got to like attend it and meet so many incredible Voya agents and give a bunch of like presentations on Terns. We have a partnership with them. And so, yeah, that was great. It's always great to just like sit down with a bunch of advisors, like for a very condensed period. I think every single second of the day I was sitting with somebody, showing them Tern and getting their feedback and hearing what they think. So that was really exciting. And then I got back and promptly got sick because that's what happens when you are on cruises. So I missed the last podcast and got to have David Tilly though fill in, which was great. Yeah, I feel like a bunch of other things, but we'll talk about them later in the podcast.
Amazing. And it's just like, it has been so funny because you had never really been on a cruise. Then we did our user conference on a cruise, right? And now you're becoming a frequent cruiser. Like it's just the travel industry has come for you.
I am.
So
it's fun
at some point, we've got a full agenda. Otherwise, I'd ask for the full review on like how you think about the different lines. But we'll come back to that maybe in a future episode if we have a lighter agenda. Brad, what's been up with you?
Yeah, I think Molly's review is just going to be, I hate cruises, and that's all we're going to get. But that's fine.
That's why we're skipping it, Brad. That's why I wasn't actually.
Okay, I went and made some coffee before this podcast. I was walking down the stairs, and I was trying to figure out what the heck has happened over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was in Cancun. Then I was in San Diego. This is probably how you feel all the time, but I just can't get over how crazy things have been. And then we did a bunch of stuff last week. We had a webinar on Tuesday. Wednesday, I was in person with a bunch of local advisors near Philly, and we were in Bucks County. There's like a group of advisors in Bucks County that get together and like share just like best practices, ideas. They have suppliers come in, so I got to sit down with a bunch of advisors for 2 hours and like talk about Tern. There's like a combo of people who have never used Tern, people who've been like early adopters but don't use it regularly, or people like Brianne, who's one of our incredible champions, who's an agency owner who like was whispering in my ear, if not actually just like giving instructions to the whole room, being like, okay, Brad says that, but my perspective as a real agency owner is you should do this way. So it's just been a wild ride the last couple of weeks, but really energizing. I think especially the kind of the 1-2 punch of the webinar on Tuesday and then like in-person time with folks on Wednesday. It was just like really energizing and invigorating and has made me lose track of all time and space, but it's okay. We're chugging along.
Yeah, it is amazing how the travel does that, right? Just like changes. It's like, where am I? When you wake up and you're like, literally like, actually, where in the world am I? Then you know that you've been on the road for too long. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. Like I can definitely empathize with that. I think I shared maybe 3 weeks ago now on the podcast that my wife and I were doing a baby moon. So we did our first ever river cruise in the south of France with Riverside. And it was like incredible. I can see why people get hooked on river cruising. It was just like so special. And it was like really just a cool moment too. It was the first time really probably in like 2.5 years that like I kind of like turned off Slack notifications, turned off email notifications, and was just like told the team is like, call me if you need me. And
Hey,
it was
David,
just like yeah.
did you go to a Facebook group while you're on the cruise?
Oh, so, I mean, there's only so much I can do. Okay. Like there's only so much that I can kind of, somebody asked me, I'm at this like retreat on, they're like, what's something that really pushed your comfort zone lately? And I actually used this as the example. I was like turning off my Slack and email notifications. And the person looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, that pushed your comfort zone. And I was like, it did. But it was also a really cool moment that it was like, we have such a good team that like you came back and it was like, it just all kept working fine. Like, and so that was really, really special. It was just a fantastic trip. And then came back and landed on Sunday and was like, right, we have a webinar on Tuesday. And so that sort of was a bit of a sprint. Fortunately, we had some of the content ready from the user conference, but that was really fun. And then I'm actually and then I was like literally home for 2 days and then flew out to Utah. I'm just outside Salt Lake City right now at a retreat with our Series A investor Viewpoint. They're hosting sort of like a founder retreat. We shared a little bit about this when we announced the Series A in May, but Viewpoint's like pretty unique in that unlike a lot of VCs who invest in companies that try and like disintermediate the like, humans in a lot of cases, their whole strategy is like we invest in companies where there is a human with relationships that is the key to the entire industry. And so for Tern, right, like we deeply believe in all of you, the travel advisor, that you are the key to this industry. And that's why we wake up every day and we try and build things for you, right? And it's really been fun spending the past 48 hours with founders who have the same belief, but in totally different industries. So we have a founder in the Medicare space, like helping, Medicare brokers connect people to the right insurance policy for them, in the private jet brokerage space, in the wealth management space, in the garbage truck industry. I mean, it's just like literally like so many different industries, but there's like so many parallels because we all have the same belief that like those industries have this incredible person for you. It's all of you that makes the industry possible. And we're all building for them in different ways. And so it's really been kind of special to zoom out, to have those conversations, to have some really cool learnings. So stay tuned on what may come out of it more tactically, but it's been cool. So that's been my whirlwind of a couple of weeks. Let's jump into maybe a little bit of a webinar recap here. I think like we won't spend too much time on it because the recording is on our YouTube page. So if you are here and maybe you're one of the people like watching this with your morning coffee on Saturday and you're like, I just want another 90 minutes of Tern content and you missed the webinar, the next up video is probably the webinar. So just keep going. But Brad, maybe I'll start with you. Just like any takeaways on like the webinar, any reflections?
Yeah, I mean, my highlight was like finally getting to actually I didn't get to say it, but we got to say that we're working with Project Expedition for like really our first like deep integration within Tern that not only will like provide a ton of I think like valuable content to help people save time, but also just like it's the first thing where like we can just like help you make that booking and like just your client authorizes payment and it just like you don't do anything else. You don't have to go in, copy credit card details, you don't have to like go copy confirmation numbers back and forth. Like it is the future of Tern. And we're like, we finally got to talk about it with a real like tangible partner and the chat went wild. And I was just like, we know people love Project Expedition. There's a reason we picked them as our first partner, but to see people like actually go like I don't know if anyone fell out of their chair this time, but it was, it's just so fun. And I think really energizing, especially for me helping like lead the design work on that project. Like I can't wait to get those things out. I was going to say hype. It's not a word I normally use, but I guess that's how hype I am.
That tells you everything you need to know about this future. Brad, could we just briefly take a moment? Brad said, this is the future of Tern. And he said, it's hype. I'm like, I need to take a break, I think. I mean, settle down, Brad. Like, it's like...
See, in the podcast, he's becoming you, David. You've been asking.
That's true. It's true. It's a disease.
He was like, you had a lot of hot David energy on that. I was like, no, not that.
And there's a lot to unpack there, but we're just going to move on. Molly, what did you think about the webinar?
I think the highlight for me was you giving everyone in the industry a collective heart attack by saying that we're getting rid of CC authors.
Yeah.
No, that was very swiftly addressed, but
yeah, I said that and I was like, this is gonna be so hype. Like, we're gonna eliminate all this like extra work. And then I like finally finished my monologue and I looked at the chat and I'm like, oh no, that was not articulated the way that I meant it.
You want to maybe re-articulate or have Brad for the record?
For the record, the thing that we want to keep and that we will never compromise on is having a compliant paper trail that helps protect your business. What we think we can eliminate is the copy and pasting of credit card data from one website to another website to another website. And like, I won't explain this too much, but like credit card authorization, the actual like legal opt-in that you're getting is the ability to do that copy and pasting, right? Like if you're actually just directly connecting the supplier and the advisor, like you don't sign a credit card off when you buy something on Amazon. So that's what the intent was. But the idea that you will have a paper trail that protects your business, that protects the supplier, that will be unwavering. All the admin though will go away.
Yeah. I think like the highlight for me was probably the real highlight, not the jokey highlight, was doing like the part around agency back office and how we think everyone can come together into a single system. And then seeing in the chat people like scheming, like, let's have our host talk to Tern, like, oh, this would be so amazing. And it's just like what we talked about so early on, like going to advisors first to start and really building a product that advisors love, and that starting to get us into the conversation with bigger and bigger agencies, and just like seeing all that momentum, I guess, like coming into fruition because we've worked so hard to, with each like part of the ecosystem we're building for, just like listen and understand and build the best in class product for them, has been really cool. And so, and I think we'll see a similar kind of revolution with suppliers when we get there too, of like all of these advisors being like, this supplier, this supplier, this supplier, like build, so I don't know. It's cool. Some of this like early vision that we had, starting to see the pieces fall into place.
I'm already getting this. Just like telling people that we're doing insurance partnerships too. The amount of people who've been like, here's my contact at X insurance company. Can you please go talk to them right away? Like we need them on Tern. Or like flip side, that's like, if you can't get them, who should I be talking to?
Yeah.
And I think that's where what was so fun about that webinar, and again, like this was not the plan. Like we decided to do this after all the people who saw it on the user conference was like, you need to do this for the industry. But it's kind of almost like freeing in a way. Like that plan, that vision thematically is not different than when we really started the company, right? The details and the exact features like have come into focus a little bit more. But this idea of building for the industry generally and the impact that will have when you bring together agencies and advisors and suppliers into one sort of collaborative platform being transformational has been what everything we've been building is working towards. But we've not talked about that in the way that we did at that webinar. And so I think it was really fun to be able to tell that story. And to the point around agencies, one of the reflections I've had is we've senior leaders at every major host agency to every one of our product webinars. And I think like some of them have attended, they're like, wow, it's hype, you have a lot of energy around the product. But those senior leaders don't always think in terms of like these features, right? They're not generally selling travel every day. So it's hard for them to understand like, why does this particular feature mean so much? And like, why does the way we design it actually matter? When we zoom out in a webinar like this, and we're actually like, here's our vision for how the industry will structurally change in 5 years. Like that's what they've been looking for, is this answer of like, how can I find a technology partner that can help me build not for today, but for where the industry is going? And so it's been really special just seeing the response to that. Like, I've had multiple meetings with senior leaders who are like, I just saw the webinar, or I want it. Can you share the copy with me? I've heard so many good things. And so it's been really fun. And I think we'll sort of maybe make this a little bit of a tradition at our user conference, is like checking in on that 5-year vision, probably adapting it as we continue to learn, but also sort of holding ourselves accountable for like, how are we trending towards those big things that we set out there. So it's been really fun. I think it was a little bit of a risk, but like seems to have been the right call. So that's the webinar. That's what you'll be watching next. If you weren't attending live, let's check that out on the YouTube page. But let's move on to product updates. Speaking of which, like we are shipping products every week. We are, listening, learning, and iterating. And we have a pretty massive one, which I think shipped an hour before we recorded this. I know that because I was checking the Facebook group and I saw the first post about it. So, Molly, you want to kick off global search?
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of a fun milestone because David Tilley, who a lot of you, if you're listening to the podcast, met last week, he's on my product team. This is his first like really big feature that he owned from start to finish. And so first, like very proud of him. I think it went really well. It's really exciting to have it out there. But I was reflecting on and chatting with both of you about how it's like been an interesting opportunity to like reflect on how to help a new product manager here actually do that from start to finish. And since we know a lot of podcast listeners kind of love that like peek behind the curtain of actually how we do business at Tern, it would be kind of a fun opportunity to share some of that. I think one thing that makes it a little bit difficult as a newer product person is that we actually very intentionally do not have a super solidified process of like something you have to do every single time you do a feature. Like it's not like you need XYZ number of meetings and you need a document structured in this exact way every single time. And like, you always do this, you always do a beta, it's actually, our approach is quite nuanced depending on what any given feature calls for. And what I think the power in that is that it makes you think deeply about like, what does success for this feature actually require from a product and process standpoint? Like, what do I need to do to make this successful? And it also lets us stay agile. If there's a bunch of stuff that feels unnecessary, you don't feel obligated to do it and waste a bunch of people's time. But as a new person trying to wrap your head around, like, what should I be doing? It's kind of like, it's a lot of pairing with me being like, in this case, I would do this because of this. And so like, that's been like kind of a fascinating process to work with David on. I think like the thing that is so different about Tern than other companies is just the amount of intensity required to ship something every week. So like just the amount of time that we spend together pulling out like what is the true MVP, the first version of this feature that will add a lot of standalone value, but not take 3 or 4 weeks to build. Like getting to that point, which was like searching for trips and contacts and what exactly do you need to search for on those things. Even just like making sure like, okay, you got to have the help center article ready to go with like the intercom. We use intercom as like those little like new placements in the product. Like you have to have that ready to go. You have to be like looking as soon as engineering's done, you're jumping into test to identify blockers so that like you're not holding up engineering when it's ready to ship, because even a day of delay is like the difference between shipping it this week versus next week, right? So there's just like so many things that go into like what make like our ability to ship weekly that I think is like almost invisible when you've been doing it for ages, that I was having to like articulate to him. So like that, it was kind of, yeah. I don't know, Brad, if you like had any reflections there, but
yeah. I think I often don't think about writing these things down or articulating them all until I find them missing. And that's even like, I know we chatted last week about another project coming up where I was like David and Ursula are working on this. And like, I don't know that they're talking to any customers about this yet. Like, actually, this is probably something we would have naturally been like, based on our gut, like we need to go like schedule a bunch of customer calls. But like, it's one of those things where if we don't take the time to like onboard them and be like, oh, well, in this scenario, here's like our recommendation of why we think that would make the project more successful. It's not going to happen just because, we don't have it like written down. There's not a playbook somewhere that people can just follow.
And at other companies, it might be like, you always talk to customers about every single feature. And so every single feature needs 3 to 4 weeks before it can even get planned. Like for Globo Search, it was like it's all uncanny. Like all of the feedback is just there. So like, do you have to have, I think David still chatted to a few customers about it, but like, yeah, so it's just like so interesting because our ability to stay agile is also, it's like kind of a double-edged sword in some ways.
And we'll talk more about to your point of like, there are certain things you only need to do for certain projects. We're doing a ton of like analytics and tracking for global search, which we generally don't do for a lot of our other features. And we'll talk about why in a minute. But I think that's a good like kind of counter example where it's like,
totally.
Spend way more time here than you would otherwise, but like don't spend as much time on this piece.
And we've talked about this too, but like it's very top of mind. Literally, just being at this event, talking to like other founders around like velocity and speed, and like how is AI making people go faster? And it's like it is wild how sort of unique this 1 week cycle is, and it makes it even really hard to benchmark with other like startups to be like, well, we're shipping a product every single week. Like, what is the actual upside that you could get from some of these new technologies? And like, we're already having to optimize so many of these different things. It is really, I think, one of the things that is our superpower and that has like forced so many good habits. But now you bring somebody on and they have to learn all of those habits, and those habits are habits, which means they're not documented. So it's like just this really interesting thing as we continue to scale of what does get written down and how do you write down the nuance of like, I don't know, it depends on the feature.
Yeah.
Without just saying like, oh, it's a bit more of an art than a science, right? Like
yeah.
Because then people can't take that and do anything with it. It's like, well, cool. I guess my version of art, I'm going to like use my gut. And then Molly and I are like, no, not that.
Your gut's wrong.
Yeah.
So let's dig into the actual feature, right? I mean, I think like there's like this onboarding thing is like super interesting. And I think a lot of the folks listening, right? If like you've onboarded or hired somebody, like you always have this sort of like, you hired them for a reason most likely, but like then you have to also sort of help get them up to speed and train them and all the things. Let's talk about the details now of global search, right? Like what does it look like? What we said, some of the unique things that we've done. Like I think that'll be really fun to dig into.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about it. What is it? So global search is basically the ability, regardless of where you are in the product, you'll see a little search bar in your top right corner, and you can type in information there, and it should pull up the kind of relevant like object in Tern. So right now that would be a trip or a contact profile. In the future, that could be a task, that could be an email, that could be many different things. So anything that exists in Tern, you could technically like use global search to jump to quickly, regardless of where you are in the product. It's been a top requested feature for a while, and it makes sense why, right? Like the surface area of Tern is quite broad. You could be working in one trip and then you get a text on your phone and you don't even have the contact saved. And so you'll need to like, wait, who's this number? You can now like type in that number in global search, see the contact profile and Tern, jump right there, take care of business, go back to the trip you're working on, all without having to do like 20 different clicks. So it's like, I don't think I can actually quantify the number of clicks we've killed with this feature, but it's like a slaughter. Sorry, that's a problem. Graphic.
Well, and we're jumping ahead, but like there's also like some new paradigms and how you can access it. I mean, it is like really, really cool. And you used this exact example, but I remember it's been almost like, I think maybe a year and a half where I was like sitting down with Walter, who we mentioned the podcast before. And he literally used that example. He like showed me his phone. He's like, I've gotten 4 texts over the past 24 hours and like, they're not saved in my contacts. And they're like talking about a trip. And I'm like, I just need to be able to go and reference this because all that data is in Tern. Like all of my contacts are in Tern. And I have to like guess. I have to click there and guess. And now you just go in and you can search for the phone number, right? It's like so cool how much faster I think this is going to make things.
Yeah,
we
like been on the like very first version. After talking to folks and looking at the feedback posts that we've seen about it, the most prominent use cases are really, I'm trying to look up a trip, and that is usually because I know a traveler on the trip that I need to look it up, or like the trip name or the confirmation number of a booking on the trip, or I need to look up a contact by their like email, phone, or name. So we started there. We're of course not done, and we actually kind of engineered some specific things to make it easier for us to layer on things over time. And I know, Brad, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about some of those like interesting considerations that we had to make for this feature that we don't always for others.
And just the detail, right? I mean, I think like this is one of those features I think it's easy for people to look at. Like, oh, it's a search box and top right, right? But like there's so much detail that went into this. So excited to unpack that too.
Yeah. There's many ways this conversation can go. Maybe just one thing to note, like to Molly's point about we gotta like start somewhere and make it small. Like we said, like right now we're searching, basically you can open a trip or a contact from global search. And we were trying to understand like how people even will, how do we know what they want to search for? Like what information about that trip or contact are they searching? I think we even did an analysis on what people are typing into the search box on like the trips page today, right? To be able to say, oh, here are the patterns. We see like traveler names, we see confirmation numbers, here's the stuff. That's the data. Those are the fields that we're going to need to match on. There's a long tail of like every possible thing you could imagine somebody putting in that search box that we looked at and said, eventually we'll probably need to support that. But like there's some obvious patterns we can start with. So it's a good example of like how we can already use data to inform what that first version looks like. And now that we have the like a true global search visible, like it's there all the time, what we'll be able to learn now is when people click on that and they start typing something, we can start to say, oh, what do we think they were looking for there? And we also know if they ended up clicking on a trip or a contact. And so we can understand like how often are people searching for something where we can't deliver the right result for them within, you know, the top 5 or whatever it is. We can also, if you really want to get into it, we can optimize for like which result should be first. So not only are we saying like, did they click on anything, but we're able to say what position was the result they were looking for, and like, did they end up clicking on it? Long term, we'd love to optimize that so that we're like, you know, like 100% sure the thing you're looking for will be at the top of the list. That could take months, years. Like there are entire teams at companies that work on like search optimization. And so like this, I think it's another cool example of where we say kind of like not now. It's like, all right, what is like the version of this? We can get in a week that like we feel like will cover a majority of the cases and be a great experience with still plenty of room to learn and play over time as we continue to level it up. So that's one of my favorite things I'll like geek out and nerd out about. Maybe it helps that Jack is also does a little stuff with the data, so we talk about it a lot. But yeah, anything else, Molly, you want to touch on?
Well, it was cool because like you know me, I like to push us to get features out there as soon as they're ready, but we were still working on making sure the right infrastructure was in place for those analytics before we released it, even though the rest of the feature was ready. And I thought David and Spencer and Jack, mentioned actually one of the biggest opportunities we'll have to learn what people are trying to search for is when they first start to use it, before they learn what it does and doesn't work for. So instead of actually just launching it to everyone right away, we decided to do a smaller beta of just a couple advisors, make sure that there's nothing that is glaringly obvious that we missed as they start to use it, finish up the analytics, and then we waited until everything was in place to launch it to everybody so that we could have that holistic set of data. So I thought that was just a good push from the team and a good balance that we did to still learn as much as we needed to.
Yeah, the other, maybe just like the details we have to get right. Search can sometimes take very long to load. Luckily, the thing we ended up building, engineers spend a bunch of time trying to optimize the performance because we're trying to save the number of clicks. But actually, it's you can search for that. It just takes 10 seconds for you to see the results. It's actually you're spending more time sitting there waiting than you are if you could just click yourself and go find the thing. And so that was one area that the team spent a ton of time on, trying to optimize all the queries, understand what's the simplest version of this we can get in here to make it snappy and feel really, really good. And then we also did a bunch of, I say we, as in Ursula, did a bunch of design explorations and trying to understand how do you make that list of results super easy to read and scan. And of course, the chips came back for another life in the results there. So you'll see a similar design pattern because we really built new sets of tables on the dashboard that make it really easy to scan the objects, whether it's trips, contacts, forms, and then say okay, there's additional data attributes about them we also want to display. Basically, those same patterns you see on the dashboard are what inform the design of the search results.
And this is there's two new all new paradigms for Tern here, right? One of which is I think this is the first feature where we've had the level of tracking, right, that we're doing here, right? And I think this is, we've talked in the past, right? Brad mentioned Jack, bringing on somebody to think about data and AI and really leveling that up. And I think this is kind of cool, right? We're now seeing that level of we are going to measure, we're going to do a bunch of analysis, we're going to implement the tooling so that we can actually start to level this up. And so it's really cool to see that in this first feature. And I think it will allow this to be really, really smart over time in a way that we've never really done before, which is cool. And then there's also, we talked about the design element here. This is also, there's one really cool thing that people have been asking about for a while that we introduced for the first time ever with global search. And I feel we should talk about that just briefly before we move on. I think it is pretty cool.
Do you want to say it? I have both forgotten to mention it for it. I feel you should just tell us what it is.
Tell it to the world. You, David, you.
I'm telling it to the world?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to say, I've been trying to tee it up. And I'm somebody said, okay, global, we have a keyboard shortcut. You can do Command K and you can navigate global search all without leaving your keyboard, which people have been asking for keyboard shortcuts for a long time. I was I don't know if I've ever had keyboard shortcuts. And then I remember seeing an early version of the design and I was wait a minute, it's a little Command K there, I could think. And it's just you can now trigger the search right from your keyboard, which is, I think, pretty exciting for power users who are trying to do stuff quickly.
And it's not just trigger the search, but you can also tab through the results. You can use the arrow keys up and down on the results and then just hit enter to go to the page. So you don't have to Command K type and then go click. It's just you can keep your hands all.
No clicks at all, you guys. 0.
No clicks.
Also, David, we should say some people don't use Mac. They've got Control K if they need to. Okay.
Yes, I apologize.
By the first person using it, who was not on the team because all of us have Macs. We crossed our fingers, we think this works.
Hopefully that works, right? We're definitely a Mac shop. Okay, well, we could talk about global search for probably another 20 minutes, but we don't have 20 minutes. And so we've got a couple other things. Brad, you talked a little bit about this on the pod last time with Ursula and David, which was the sort of PDF export. That's now been live. There's been some cool stories. Anything you want to sort of share as sort of an update there?
Yeah, I'll say we got it out kind of Friday afternoon. It was a bit of a roller coaster. I was really excited about it. I woke up Saturday morning from a few emails from people who had looked at it and they were pushing us to make additional changes. And I was kind of down all weekend. It's dang it, we didn't nail it. There's more. And I think it is, I don't know, it actually is the best thing about this user, this side of this community, we'll say. People who are hey, I appreciate everything you're doing and I still want to push you. I still want to ask for more because I know y'all can do it and here's why this matters to my business. Like, here's some of the things that are important to me and my travelers, and I want to make sure you hear them. So all that's to say, it's out. I think plenty of people are really excited about it. I got to be on a call earlier this week with some folks who they print like an incredible packet for all of their clients. And this was the day after it was live. He like showed me the packet. Like, it was like the most wild thing, like seeing my thing in real life, this like gorgeous bound like booklet that they send to their customers. And so like some people love it, but some people still have feedback. So I would say keep the feedback coming. The more detail you can share about like what you like and don't like, share examples of, if you have them, of things you really, really love, and talk about like how this impacts you, not just like, I don't like it, but like, here's the result of, this specific design choice. That helps a bunch. We will continue to invest in the client, everything client facing. We want to make sure all those materials feel like world class and represent your brand. More to come there, but just like a thank you. And I hope people do like it, even though maybe it's not yet perfect.
Progress over perfection, right? And the PDF stuff is like way gnarlier than you'd think. Like I feel like every time we like touch it, it's like, yeah, it should, one of those things where it's like, oh, like PDF's been around forever. Like, how hard could it be? And then you're like, actually, it's really messy. But all right, we are like, bumping up on time. So we'll do maybe rapid fire quality of life improvements. Molly's got the kind of product update with some more details. I hope everyone missed the hand motions. If you're watching on YouTube, I did notice Brad talked about the hand motions, but didn't do them last week. So I did catch that. But it's fine. Moving on, quality of life. Molly, do you want to kick us off? We didn't actually put names by these topics, so I'm just going to throw it over to you as an audible.
Okay. Brad, you talk about the first two. I'll talk about the second two.
Okay, cool. So with the new payments model, in a few places on the advisor side, we use the word disambiguating currencies. So if multiple currencies all use the dollar sign, so you had some bookings in Canadian dollars and some in US dollars, we weren't showing that variation on a few different views for you. Travelers on the authorization page were still seeing everything correctly, so no stress there. It was just one of those things where we weren't bubbling it up in enough places on the advisor side, so we've since fixed that. Now, if a currency is in a currency other than the trip currency, it should show what the other currency symbol is. It's like Canadian dollars versus US, things like that. And then we also added some tabs to the documents section on a trip. There are cases where maybe you have documents on an itinerary that gets rejected by your travelers, or they're on an option within an option block that your travelers didn't select, or they declined an optional add-on. Those things we want to make sure is clear to you that they are no longer visible to the traveler at all. And so now there's a separate bucket that's like hidden versus visible, I think, are the two tabs that we have on the documents area. How'd I do?
And then we also, in our quest to continue to make Tern work better on smaller screens, the new text editor now collapses more nicely so that you can still use the text editor when you have a small screen size. And then my personal favorite quality of life this week, if you're sending a new agent payout email, so if you're an agency owner, you're creating payout statements to then export all that data to pay your agents out from Tern, you can now automatically trigger an agent payout email to let them know that it's today's payday, you're getting paid, here's a direct link to your statement in Tern. The quality of life update this week is that we now save that preference. So if you've sent one in the past, we figure you probably want to do this every time, so you don't have to toggle it on manually each time. And if you've added a custom note, that's also something that's typically the same pay period over pay period. So we kind of pre-fill what you used last time. You can always tweak it from there. So hopefully that should save a lot of time when you're running payroll.
Oh, cool. That was great. Rapid fire quality of life. I'm like fighting the urge to just like dig into the payroll email because I haven't got to talk about that on podcast. I think it's like so cool, but for the interest of time, I will contain myself. So let's move on to week ahead, where we're just going to kind of like wrap up with like, as we always do, it's like, what is next week looking like for folks? Like what's on people's minds? And Brad, we'll start with you.
I'm going to be deep in our integration with Project Expedition. And the highlight next week should be releasing our very first iteration of that, which will be the ability to search through all Project Expedition tours and pull them into an itinerary with all of the images and the rich text content about that tour, all the same way you can do with cruises today. I think it's going to save people tons and tons of time, especially if you're selling a lot of Project Expedition, and more to come there. Tune in next week.
And It's the first time that like a product like this has brought discovery of tours and activities into the app. Like, I think it's so exciting. I couldn't help say it, but Molly, over to you.
So I'm working with David on the theme of 10x faster trip planning that we talked about in the webinar. What is the next set of things that we're going to do and invest in there in Q4? And then for my squad, I own squad 2. We're deep in the host sub agency hierarchy, which I will not elaborate on because for the sake of time, but we should be kind of reaching our first big milestone, which is actually setting up that account structure in Tern and being able to manage subscriptions if you're a host in a more like formal structured way in Tern. So a lot more to come, and we'll probably talk about that more in our next podcast.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a dedicated 45-minute. There's a lot there. That's exciting. I think Monday and Tuesday are probably just going to be like catching up with people. I feel like with all the travel and stuff, I'm like, overdue for lots of ones and just sort of like chats and catching up on things. And then it's back on the road. We're at Cruise World next week. So if you're going to Cruise World, we're hosting a happy hour on, I think it's the 6th, but there's details in the community. If you go to the community tab, you'll find it all there. We'd love to have you. It's a happy hour at Olive and Sea, which is right at the Hilton Fort Lauderdale Marina, which is the conference hotel. We'll be doing a hour-long information session where we talk about how you can sell more cruises, shore excursions. We'll probably demo some of the new Project Tradition stuff on Thursday morning. And then we've got the trade show. And then I don't think we're going to go to the Travis, but yeah, there's like some celebration there. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about that or not, but I actually won one of the like 40 under 40 things. So I think that's public now, but I'm not totally sure. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that, but keep it a secret if it's not supposed to be out there. Well, maybe after that, it should be fine. Like, I don't know. At this point, it seems like it's out there. But anyway, that's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, David.
It's too late now, I guess. We're probably not going to edit it. But anyway, so that's...
I put it out there.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're going to bleep.
No, it wasn't us. Yeah, no, we'll maybe check.
Meeting, we should go.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. Go ahead and click on the like, subscribe, do all the things. We'll see you next time. Bye.